Just wanted to do a really quick video on how to make crescent rolls out of freshly milled flour. And I'm actually going to be using spelt flour today instead of the hard white wheat that I've used in the other videos. I absolutely love working with spelt flour. It is actually an ancient grain, and if you can see there, it's a lot fluffier than the hard white wheat that I was working with before. The molecular structure of spelt is actually different when it comes to the gluten protein in it. So it's much more easily digested by the body, and it actually contains more fiber than regular wheat does. And that is also what helps it to be more digestible. It is such a forgiving grain to work with. It makes the most beautiful, fluffiest yeast breads that you can imagine, and it makes wonderful cookies and pastries. It's a very universal flour. So today I'm going to do the crescent roll recipe or the butterhorn roll recipe that I do. And I'm actually going to also add maybe a loaf of bread out of this just so you guys can see how big and fluffy it gets. If you have picky eaters and you're having a hard time transitioning to the hard stuff, the actual whole grain, spelt is a great grain to start with because it is very similar in texture to white flour. So I'm going to basically just add a little bit, just a little something different here to the basic recipe that I did, and then it's all going to be about how we shape it and what we do to make the crescent roll texture. So we're actually going to be doing a 3 loaf or 3 recipe today for 3 batches of bread, and so I'm actually using 3 1/4 cups of very warm water again. You can use milk in butterhorn recipes. I don't typically do that just because I try to keep the recipes as simple and low budget and also as healthy as I can. So we put in the 3 1/4 cups of warm water, and since I'm doing 3 recipes in here, I'm actually just going to do a tablespoon of salt, again pink salt, a 1/4 teaspoon or actually a 1/2 teaspoon of vitamin C powder, just sprinkled in the water. That's going to help our dough to be even more light and fluffy. Some extra virgin olive oil, 1/4 cup. Just put that in there. 1/4 cup of our raw honey, some good local honey here. I did put some oil in that cup prior to filming so that it would slide out pretty well there. And do that one. And then I'm actually additionally adding an egg. The lecithin in the egg does help with the fluffiness of breads as well, so we're going to add that. That's really the only change that I made to the basic recipe. And then I'm just going to do 3 cups spread around of this spelt flour to start with. So we've got 3 cups in there. Whoops, something fell off over there. I've got the windows open and the doors open today. It's beautiful outside. So I said 3, we're going to go ahead and put 6 cups in there for now so that I can cover the water completely. So if I can have Katie just show that we just have all the water covered on there because I'm about to add the yeast. So I'm going to make a little pocket just like you did before. See that fluffy flour there? And this time we're still going to add the 3 tablespoons of yeast. I know that sounds strange, but whether you're making 3 loaves or 5, you really need the same amount of yeast. Okay, and I'm actually going to put the lid on now. And we're going to start the process mixing the dough. Pop this top one off. You see how we have such a soupy mess, so we're going to go ahead and add some more. That'll be our 7th cup of flour. 8th cup. We know we're going to need 9, but I'm probably going to need a little more because the spelt flour is very absorbent due to the high fiber content. You start to see that it's about getting our dough out of the bowl here, making our little mountain of dough. And if you can see here, that's how well the bowl should have cleaned itself. If the texture and consistency of the bread dough is right, it shouldn't leave a lot of residue. So this looks like a really good batch of dough today. The humidity and everything is a good day for making bread. Okay, I'm just gonna put that over there. I had already sprayed my countertop, and so actually now I'm just gonna get a small amount, kind of like you were just doing a regular loaf, about enough to fit in the palms of your hands, I guess. And now I'm actually just gonna press that out gently, and I wanna show a dough test really quick, just how different this dough is. The satiny texture is definitely there. But the amazing thing about this is it is super pliable. So I'm just gonna stretch this out by hand, and you can actually see light through that. I don't know if that can show, but see how stretchable that is before it tears? I mean, it's so paper thin. That means that your gluten has been developed properly and that you're going to have some pretty awesome bread to be proud of. So you just pat the dough out into a circle a little bigger than like a pie pan, a little bigger than a dinner plate. And you can take a dough roller if you want to, but that one looks pretty good shape-wise, so I'm just gonna roll it out a little. You don't want these too thin, but you don't want them too thick either, because it takes away from the texture of the butter and all when you roll it up. So we're gonna just get that like that. We just have a general round shape of bread there, and then I'm actually going to, wait a minute, put the butter on there. You want to be pretty liberal with this. This is some grass-fed organic butter that I have here. So it does have, if you get that kind of butter, it has some good healthy fats in it. So don't skip on the family on this part. They love the butter in this. It actually just creates such a wonderful texture with the spelt flour. So we just cover the surface really good. And then I'm actually just going to take a pizza cutter, and I'm just going to cut this into triangles, just like that. Okay, and you can make these smaller if you make smaller triangles, but I'm going to make some nice size ones out of these because they're easier to work with. So I just took the ends and I'm just tucking them along like this. You want to kind of leave it pretty loose, but not too loose. You're going to just tuck the little tail there at the end, and it's going to just make a little butterhorn or a crescent roll shape. And you're just going to do that with each one of these. So start here, just kind of use your fingers and roll that initial one in so that it stays kind of tight, and then loosely roll these. And then that is your general shape there of your butterhorns, and we're just going to let those ride. Okay, so with the remaining dough here, I had some leftovers, so I'm just going to do a loaf of Spelt loaf sandwich bread here. It's wonderful, just to show how well it rises and how soft the texture is. So we're just doing the shaping it, trying to get all those end pieces and then roll them inside. You want to be careful not to get any air bubbles in there because that will rise up really pretty, but you'll have big holes in your bread. So kind of tucked all that in, make sure there's no seams. This is so active and fluffy with the yeast and the gluten. I'm just going to give him a couple little taps there to get any air bubbles out that perhaps stayed even after the knead time. So I'm just scooting it to one side and then the other, just to kind of get a general shape there. And you can put some slits across the top of that if you want to, but we're going to put this in the same oven that I put the crescent rolls in, and we're going to let them just rise in an oven that is not on for about 15 minutes. While our crescent rolls are baking in the oven at 375 degrees so that they can be kind of crispy and flaky, I've been letting the loaf of bread that I made out of the spelt rise on the stove with just a paper towel covering it, and had a little bit of dough left over, so just need another quick batch of cinnamon rolls, and they're rising too. So I'm getting ready to take out the crescent rolls and put these in the oven. Rolls have come out of the oven, and again I baked those on 375 instead of 350 just so they could develop more of a crust. And this is what the finished product looked like. So they have risen quite a bit, more than doubled in size. And they're pretty amazing because they just break apart like that, and you can actually just peel the layers, and they're really, really tasty that way. I brushed these with the leftover butter that I had when I had made the dough, so that's just a little bit of extra that you can add to the top there. Here's the finished product. We actually got 8 really nice size crescent rolls that can be used for even for breakfast with some eggs or something like that, or for dinner. And then we have the smaller ones, which is what we'll use for dinner tonight with our meal. And these are so flaky and buttery inside. I don't want to mess them up because they are pretty, but they are just really delicious and very good buttery flavor. And then I had some leftover dough. Even though that was a 3-loaf recipe, I actually got like 20 plus rolls, and I got 8 cinnamon rolls, and then I just did a loaf of the spelt bread because it makes such good sandwich bread. And I hope you can see that. It's just really soft and pliable, and this bread is so airy and light to eat. So, hope you guys enjoy it. If you give it a try, just comment below and tell me what you thought.